We should call this episode Smelling Tom Selleck.
The scent of Selleck.
The Selleck scent.
Tom Smelleck.
It was there the whole time. The masculine scent of Tom Selleck. The masculine aroma. Oh dear. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of A Woman Refined. I am Lauren Renee, and I am your host. You may know me from Instagram. Some of you may know me as that Insta chick. That's who I used to be, but I am now a woman refined, and I am just a woman on a journey of self-refinement. So, picking up this podcast, I had a podcast pre-2020, and I am going to be releasing some of those episodes as well. So some of these are pre-2020 episodes, but I have a few out of the gate that are new episodes, 2024 episodes. So the old podcast was called The Connector, and it was basically people's awesome life stories. So they will be in here too. Why not give you those to listen to? They're already there. But the new episodes will be a focus on refinement, human refinement, and what do we think we need to do, and just good chats with awesome people. So first up, we have my very good friend who I have known, what we now have discovered is 9 years now, Stuart Gadenne. Stu is Ragnarok Survival on Instagram, or he would be actually ragnarok.survival.actual on Instagram. And Stu is an expert in pretty much everything and anything that you could ever need. He's a great chat and a good friend, and I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. We go deep into the subtleties and the nuances of modern masculinity, and where we think we went wrong and how we think we can claw our way back. So strap in, and I hope you enjoy. And as always, as everyone always tells you, click, share, like, follow, all that kind of stuff if you would like. And if you want to give us a follow on Instagram, if that's not where you came from, if you just discovered us here somehow, it's _woman_refined. So without further ado, here's episode 1. Stuart Gadenne, welcome, also known as Ragnarok Survival. Some people might have seen us having some whiskey-fueled discussions, shall we say, on Instagram Lives, which still sit on both of our accounts. But if you haven't met young Stuart before, Stu, can you give us a little on who you are?
Sure.
And what you do?
Thank you for the introduction. My name is Stuart, yes. What do? I do many different things. The main thing that I do right now, I guess, is teach or facilitate courses in high threat environment training. So teaching people how to be more situationally aware, how to survive different situations, kind of all falling under the umbrella of survival in my head, at least. Probably more geared towards urban survival and, going overseas and being in difficult situations for a lot of people. So aid workers, government workers, journalists, things like that, people who generally access my stuff, my wares, and then occasionally make weird, what do you call it, rhetoric on the interwebs through certain channels. As you said, Ragnarok Survival is my Instagram account that I mainly use, and then think about stuff a lot. What else am I?
Background in
I am
Special
a
Forces.
nerd, a geek, a father. Oh yeah, ex-special forces. Yeah, there's that as well. That kind of stuff. Yes, enthusiast of outdoors and wilderness type stuff.
And you like
And prepper.
philosophy and mythology and prepping, yes. But you like philosophy and mythology and all that kind of stuff as well.
I do. I do.
And Stu is also one of my best mates.
Yes, yes. That's part of me. Ah, thanks.
It's true. It's true. I was actually talking to our mutual friend last night, and she said, "How long have you and Stu been friends?" And I said, "Oh, it's actually 9 years. It's a
Hmm,
long time."
there you go. Has been.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yes.
Hmm.
So Stu and I, whilst we do talk about prepping and whiskey and mythology, theology, philosophy, all that kind of stuff, sometimes Stu and I also like to shoot the shit when it comes to um, society, I guess, and the kind of psychosomatic and psychological roles that we all kind of play out in our day-to-day lives. Stu's also qualified psychotherapist. I am not qualified at any of that crap, but I do have 6 friends who are psychotherapists. So I'm constantly surrounded by very emotionally aware people who are making me up my game.
A bunch of psychos.
Yes. They say you teach what you need to know, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. That's it.
Well,
My take on psychotherapy is that the people who probably need it the most are the people who become psychotherapists.
yeah. Look, I can't disagree with you, but also like 6 of my closest friends are psychotherapists. So what does that say about my choice in friends? I don't know. I like people who can hold really nuanced and complex situations, conversations, sorry, and have emotional awareness and communicative ability to go with me on those journeys. I like to discuss that kind of stuff. So I find that you all do that very well.
Hmm. Well, I don't know how well I actually get my points across, but I can put words to things. Plenty of words.
Well, something that you and I were
Plenty
talking
of words for
about
me.
um, yesterday. Sorry, this is a little delayed, which is a bit annoying. It sounds like I'm talking over you, but on my end, it's silence. Just FYI. Um, something that you and I were talking about the other day, because I am currently house sitting and I have a really large TV with all of the apps, which is a treat for me because I don't own a TV. And I was watching 3 men and a baby, and then 3 men and a little lady, which coincidentally is one of my favorite films as a kid. And I was talking to my dad about it, and he was like, "Yeah, you loved that film. You watched it over and over." And I was like, "Dad, it was really inappropriate for me to be watching as a child. I don't know why you let me watch that." But I was telling you, and I was saying something was going on watching that. And as you know, a woman in her 30s, watching Tom Selleck uh, be Tom Selleck, be this super masculine man. And, you know, the kid that the 3 of them decide to look after isn't actually his kid, it's Ted Danson's kid. But in the film, you know, his character, it's still, they actively talk about how they assigned him the father role. We made you Papa Bear, I think is the words that they use. So he kind of, there's, you know, Ted Danson's the actual biological father. And then you've got the creative artist guy, Michael, I don't know who the actor is, and he kind of meets the emotional needs of the woman. And then you've got Tom Selleck's character who talks about, he's like, I think women want security. He was the one making all the decisions. He goes and fights for the child and for the woman. He is the shit tester when her new boyfriend comes around, and he's like putting him up to the test and kind of saying, "You've never been around children. What the hell do you know? What business do you have coming here saying you want to marry this woman and take her child away?" And when that guy gets too smart, you know, Tom Selleck ends up punching him out. And yeah, just like a real, I just realized how rare it is to see that level of assured masculinity on the screen anymore or promoted as a good thing. And you were discussing how good he was in Magnum PI.
Yeah, yeah. Even if you just take it, let's take it from the most shallow version.
Mm.
The length of his shorts in Magnum PI, right? Um, like just the confidence that is displayed in that. It reminds me actually, it's a la um, James Bond in Sean Connery era James Bond, like these little short shorts. And I look at that and I'm like, man, I don't know if I'd wear short shorts like that. It's not me. I have noticed as I'm getting older, the length of my shorts is getting shorter and shorter. I'm getting more and more comfortable with these shorter shorts. But I'm going on a weird tangent here, but it's there's something about it, like the fashion sense, where he's just confident to wear whatever he like, what it is that he wants to wear.
Mm.
That's the thing that he's going to wear. Um, yeah, and it just sort of speaks to something that's, I don't know, kind of lacking, I guess, bit nowadays.
He actually worked
Um,
in two menswear stores before he became famous. And he has not let that mustache go. He has found his look and he is stuck to it. And it's a hyper masculine look. Like to wear short shorts and still come off as masculine and not effeminate is a feat.
mm,
He's wearing Hawaiian shirts with that too. And that's not, and he doesn't come across like a jokey kind of guy, like a larrikin or someone you don't take seriously. It's like you've got a low button Hawaiian shirt, moccasin loafers, a thick as mustache, and the shortest beige shorts I've ever seen. Your shirt's tucked in too, and I'm taking you very seriously, and it's weirdly I'm attracted to the.
and a man pelt, like he's got
Oh
like
yeah.
the the hair coming out there.
Hey, you got new tattoos?
Yeah,
I haven't seen those ones. There you go. So you would have had to shave your man pelt for that.
I did, and so it's and it's still just coming back in. I had to shave it twice, in fact, for it because this was a long sitting, this entire chest.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah, the man pelt of Tom Selleck. Well, he doesn't even have any tattoos as far as I'm aware. You know, he doesn't have these outwardly facing.
Tough stickers.
Yeah, like he's not in so many ways he doesn't present as a hypermasculine dude, yet he exudes hypermasculinity. What is
Mm,
that?
yep. Yeah, he's not like, you don't think Tom Selleck can go like, or 80s masculine icons, right? If I say that, I go, all right, 80s action, 80s masculine icon. Who do you think? Like, who comes to mind there?
Yeah. I'm thinking, we've got Rambo, we've got Terminator, you've got Rocky, all of these
Yeah.
muscled up dudes.
Yep, you've got your Chuck Norris, your
Oh
Sylvester
yeah, Chuck.
Stallone, your Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they all are. But then there's this subtle one, and we got onto this conversation the other day where it's like Tom Selleck, he's a boss, right?
Yeah.
And when you say Tom Selleck and masculinity, you're like, yeah, of course. But it's not the first thing that jumps into your mind because he's not overt about it. He just holds that presence, which I think is a truer representation in my mind, at least, of masculinity.
100%.
And I actually threw in there. You had some list going, and I threw in to like on my list. I was like Clint Eastwood as well.
Mm,
You don't think of Clint Eastwood as like, he's not burly, he's not big, muscular type guy. Um, kind of almost a bit wiry, really. But he falls in that same sort of category for me, where he's like, yeah, this dude just has it.
mm. And it's not pervy either. When I think about like Harrison Ford, how he was in Star Wars and how he was in Indiana Jones, and even like a lot of the James Bonds, their masculinity is kind of based around this like Lothario kind of persona where it's like very geared towards the woman and how the women perceive them makes them a man, makes them like a top dog. And it's kind of like, hey, baby, look at this thing I just saved. Whereas Tom and then you got the other end where you've got, your Rambos and your Rockies and your Terminators, where it's like, I'm a man because I'm better than all the other men and I can beat them physically. And then you've got like the Clint Eastwoods and the Tom Sellecks. And the other people I had on the list were a little bit earlier timeline. So we're talking about like Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, Marlon Brando. So it's just this more, like you were saying, like a more embodied sense of masculine, where they kind of don't need to beat up anyone or get all the women to prove their masculinity. And even in Tom's case, he was married. He married a single mother, and he adopted her son. And then they divorced 10 years later, and he is still the boy's father, and to this day, and still treats him as his son. He then remarried 2 years after their divorce. And that was in the 89, I think, just before he got Three Men and a Little Lady. And they're still married to this day. He's never been like a Hollywood dude who's out there sleeping around, going to all the parties. He's he's a family man, and he's a responsible man, and he's not bragging about it. He's just very quiet about it. And it's something that I think is quite overlooked, because I mean, masculinity and femininity is talked about on the internet right now like nobody's business. It's a hot topic, but I think people are missing the boat on the Tom Selleck, Clint Eastwood type archetypes.
Well, this for me actually hits the point of this conversation for us. It's not just about, like, we preface this with Tom Selleck. This isn't a conversation about Tom Selleck per se. Really, like what you said, masculinity, femininity is kind of a hot topic. Why is it a hot topic? And why are we even talking about it? Why is it a thing? Why do we even categorize that? It's because of where our society is at the moment. And maybe real, maybe perceived lack of these things, or disruption in these forces or powers or whatever it is, however you want to describe them, polarities within our society. And that we've shifted, and there has been a rapid shift over the last, especially 3-4 years, away from that. Or it's to the point now where it might have been subtle as it was happening through the 90s and the 2000s. But what's happened in the last 5 years, I think, has been so dramatic that you can actually look at it and go like, hang on a minute, wait. What's going on here?
Yeah.
What's happening? And the yearning, I mean, I love listening to 80s music. I mean, I love listening to all sorts of music, but I really love 80s, 70s music. I love 80s TV shows because that's what I grew up with. It's nostalgic, definitely. But there is also something that's there. When I sit down and watch one of the new Star Wars, and then I watch the old Star Wars, and I'm like, what happened here?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on with our society? Why have we, like, what is actually going on here? And why do I like this stuff? Do I like this stuff just because, you know, the nostalgia factor, like I'm listening to Metallica or Guns N' Roses or whatever it might be? Or is it that this music is actually better? It is better music than what I'm getting today. And then now they're just kind of symptoms of what our society is doing. All these arts are just symptoms. TV shows, well, they're just the manifestation of what's going on in the zeitgeist, the undercurrent of our society. So what is it about our society? What has actually changed here? And that's where this discussion now of, I think, of masculinity and femininity is coming out in people, because we are going like, wait a minute, where are we? What's going on? What are we actually missing here? Tom Selleck. That's what we're
Tom
missing.
Selleck getting Magnum PI to come in and sort it all out. Yeah, I think the discussion around this as well is in itself a problem. And I don't think a lot of people want to admit that, because we swung so hard opposite. So we all were told, you're living in a patriarchy. We were sold the feminist lie that, let chicks run the world, that'll be much better. And it has not been better. It just is quite evident in our societal structure, which is breaking down in the Western world, the West is way less patriarchal on the whole. And then now we've come to this point where it's gone so far one way that the people who are trying to bring it back can't hold space for nuance or like really delicate discussions, they have to be as loud as that other hard end that's gone so far. They have to be as loud, but it's at the opposite end. So the solution to the problem, they believe, is to go back to the 1950s, to go back to the toxicity of the patriarchal system that wasn't working before. And if it was, we probably wouldn't have had feminism. So there was something inherently wrong in that. I don't think that feminism was the answer to what was wrong, but no one wanted to look at that. Feminism swung hard that way because they said, hey, this isn't working for us. This is what's been happening here isn't working. And then we were fed a whole bunch of propaganda around that. Thank you, the Rockefellers, who wanted to bring, another tax bracket into their payment system, get women out of the home, get them working, all that kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of like conspiracy that goes on behind the scenes. But culturally and socially, we were told, this system isn't working, and it wasn't working. There was a lot of abuse in marriages. There was a lot of disrespect and cheating. There was a lot of disregarding women as stupid or overly emotional, lesser valued. Even getting with the women the vote was hard work, all that kind of stuff. And so we went hard the other way, and now we've continued to go harder and harder that way till it's the point where we don't even know what a woman is. And then now you've got the red pill guys coming back and saying, we need to go back to that because that was way better. And it would be great if we made more babies and had more families. But I actually should sleep around because it's actually natural for men to cheat. And my woman should be loyal. And the only thing you should ever be worried about is money, and boys don't cry, and all this kind of like hardcore stuff that people were trying to move away from in the first place. They've kind of put on a pedestal and said, well, you were trying to move away from that, so that must be the answer, whatever you're trying to move away from, rather than having the discussion of what would be a healthier version of what we had before that isn't this. And I think that's very difficult for people to sit down and consider because it's less emotional. I would also argue that a lot of those red pill men are highly emotional people, sometimes more emotional than women. And it isn't an emotional conversation. It is a very embodied conversation. It's a very heart-centered conversation. It requires you to take drastic responsibility for yourself, your behavior, your actions, your past, and your future. And it requires you to change all of your habits and back yourself and stick to that. And that's a really hard thing for a lot of people to do in this society. And it's not loud. It's not going to get you fame. It's not going to get you clicks and likes and followers. This is why we went hard New Age, and now we've gone hardcore Christianity. We're bouncing back to the Christianity again. A lot of people converting from the New Age to Christianity. And there are a lot of people who are making money off that. They're online, converting people, same way the red pillars are. And everybody believes they're doing things for the right reason. But there are people that I really respect who are just quietly going about doing the work in their day-to-day lives. And sometimes they share it online and sometimes they don't, but rarely are they making money off it, because I think that in itself is almost a symptom.
Yeah, yeah. It's like when these people are like the red pillars or whatever. I don't really. I kind of know what you're talking about. I just
Andrew
don't access
Tate.
a lot of that stuff. Yeah. That's the person that's the archetype that popped into
Yes.
my head then when you were describing that. So I was like, oh, it sounds like not that I know a lot of Tate's stuff. I
Mm.
haven't really watched his stuff. So full disclosure, I'm not really soaking in his juice, as it were.
Gross.
Um, yeah. But like, what's like? I always look at this and go like, this is the cart before the horse, or
Mm.
the tail wagging the dog, which is exactly what got us into this kind of mess, I guess, in the first place. Is you look at it and go like, well, men do and it says in the Bible, for example, that men is here's the structure, blah blah blah,
Mm.
and then taking that and kind of like extrapolating it out and turning into a societal rule where then it's only men in parliament, it's only men, or only men are the leaders, only men, blah 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 blah. And what we get is kind of, or what I think we ended up with was a little bit of a corrupted value system. The
Mm-hmm.
issue for me was really like not who's on top, who's doing whatever. It's just like where do we as a society agree where values are placed? And like I'm a father, and I there are certain things that I feel like I need to do, and it aligns with some of those things, but not in the way that you can overtly talk about it. Like, should I be in charge of the people in my household? Yes, in the sense that they are my charges, that they are my care, that they are under my care, that I have to look after them in the way that I do.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a way that my partner looks after the family
Mm-hmm.
as well, and the value I don't think has quite been there. The value of a mother, which in my head is far surpasses anything else that we can do. There is no CEO level. There is no prime minister, president, king, whatever you want to name. There is nothing that trumps or surpasses that particular undertaking in life, because it is life.
Mm.
Like literally anything else you could do, almost anything else. Like a farmer, I think, is one of my most respected vocations, because you create food,
Mm.
and hopefully you create food for people, and it's fucking hard. If you've ever tried it, it
Mm.
is
Mm-hmm.
so hard to do, and getting much harder in the modern world, in our systems that we have. But a farmer always has my utmost respect. um So, you can't, it's hard to live without food, right? You've got to create food, but there are other ways to get food. There is no other way that we know yet to create life. Without mothers, none of it matters. None of what we're
Yeah.
screaming and crying for. No, no, I stand for Ukraine, or Gaza, or like, hashtag me too,
Mm.
or whatever it is that you're bleating about like a little sheep this week. Not that I'm saying those things aren't important, but it'll change every week
Mm.
what the important thing is.
Mm.
Everything pales in in comparison to motherhood. Yeah, as a society, I don't think we place the value on motherhood. It's just like, oh yeah, mothers. Even like, I hear this term come out every now and then, breeders, and I'm like, man, you want to piss me off? Like, you say that around me, and I'm liable to fucking lose my shit. Um, yeah, that's where we've kind of slipped. I think there is value in anything that people do and undertake, but that value, I think, has been really undervalued historically.
Yeah, your individualistic vocation that you might want to do would not be able to be undertaken without someone having given birth to you. So
Yeah.
that's so great that you want to go and do that and not create a family, but you have to respect the fact that you can only do that because you came from a family. There was that.
Um,
Sorry, go ahead.
like the extrapolation and extension of this is, what I feel we're about to suffer the dire consequences of now. And if you look at what is happening in, as an example, Japan or
Mm.
Italy, or
Mm.
what's about to happen in China, and what's about to happen into most of the rest of the world, apart from maybe Africa,
Mm.
um, and some other parts of the world, uh, we're about to hit a decline that may actually not be recoverable from.
Mm.
And the consequence of that isn't just what people think, like, oh, okay, decline in birth rate. Yep, we're going to have less people, which means we'll all have more resources. No, it actually hits a point because of the breeding age cycle where we cannot actually repopulate those places, and they're going to collapse, and they're going to stay collapsed for as long as we can think of.
Mm.
So our population is like a worldwide population. If things continue the way they're going, they're going to collapse. And I think that is actually a manifestation of what I was talking about, that we don't respect the uh, the cycle of life enough. We don't go, you are a mother. That's the tippy top of society. That's the
Yeah.
peak of what you could do as a human being, of what anyone could do as a human being. You're like, oh, you're a mother? That's an inconvenience.
Mm.
That's going to affect your career.
Yeah.
And so people are going, oh, fuck, maybe I don't want to be that.
It's really
Now,
hard too. I heard it's really painful and it's really hard and you don't get any sleep. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And like, no,
yeah,
it's not fun. But you're literally the portal between two worlds. So that's kind of cool. I don't know if that like comes into consideration. Would you be like, hey, I have the ability to be a portal between two worlds? And I think, looking at the biological aspects of us as men and women, forget about your fucking gender identity, your biological responsibility, and why are we here on a metaverse kind of way, not so much on a spiritual belief system based. And this is where we kind of go with our masculine and feminine definitions, but on a biological, if we come back to biological, what a man is and what a woman is very clear. It's very simple. Men are stronger. You're physically stronger than us. You are built differently. You're single focused. You actually have better eyesight for hunting. You're less sociable. Men will sit next to each other and not speak because that's how you used to do it when you were hunting, right? Whereas women are sociable creatures. We are made to carry, well, most of us are made to carry babies. Some of us come out when it's not possible. But if we come back to the biological, rather than go, this is what the Bible says about that, or this is what this ideology says about that, or this is what Andrew Tate says about that. If we come back to the very most basic of who we are, your highest vocation as a woman is to become a mother. And I started to write a piece on this and I wanted to put on Instagram, but I started writing and I couldn't stop writing. And I was like, maybe I need to stop Substack or something. Maybe I need to write like a 20 page essay on this because like I had some shit to say. But there was that video that came out of that NFL kicker who gave a speech at a university.
Harrison Butker.
Yes. So he gave that speech at a Catholic university at their graduation. And he is a devout Catholic himself. And he said, I'm sure you're all really proud of what you've done today, and you should be. It's a great achievement. But I also know that a lot of you, when you're looking forward to your futures, you're looking forward to becoming wives and mothers. And I wouldn't be here today without the support of my wife, who's been incredible and has been an integral part of my success. And as she leaned into her vocation of being a wife and a mother, and people took such great offense to that. And it just, for me, it made the most sense in the world because it's like, people saying, oh, he said that, whatever they did at university is not going to matter because they're going to become mothers. And I was like, well, when you become a mother, you kind of realize that everything else doesn't actually matter. And if it does, then you've got your priorities wrong. You, as a biological sense, should be putting your child above everything else. Your child's survival should be the foremost thing on your mind. Your child's advantage in the world, your child's development, mental, spiritual, emotional, family bonding, how intelligent it is, how strong it is, how healthy it is, should be the thing that you're thinking about all the time. And if that's not your priority, if you're like, but I just don't get any time for me, what about my career and everything that I work towards? There's something wrong in your brain where you have not engaged the right hormones to be putting your child first. And that's going to offend so many people, but I actually don't care because we're coming back to a biological sense. Your hormones, if you've done this right, and this is where intervention in the birthing process comes in, intervention in pregnancy and the way that we treat women and our societal structure, it interrupts our hormone cycle, all the phthalates and the chemicals and the jabs and all that kind of stuff that interrupt our hormone cycle. But when we talk about men having low testosterone as being a problem, but when we interrupt women's hormones, they lose the maternal ability and they lose the bonding ability. And they don't breastfeed and they don't bond. They don't give birth vaginally. They don't bond. They send their kids to daycare. They don't bond. And so therefore, they have to have other priorities because their biological function is not working to the best of its ability. And this is where we start to break down as a society. It's a huge thing it's a sacrifice. We talk about men going to war and sacrificing and all that they sacrifice to provide for us. They work really hard. they take care of their family, and they understand that they take care of the woman and the woman takes care of the child, because it's actually very hard for a man to take care of a child. They're not wired that way biologically. But the sacrifice that the woman has to make is she gives her body, she gives her mind, and a lot of times her mental health, because of the way that we're structured in this current society, which isn't conducive to mother's mental health. In our nuclear secular families, they're away, tucked away in a little box by themselves. But it is a huge sacrifice that she makes. She's sacrificing herself, and she has to die, and she has to be willing to die to give herself over to her next iteration, which is the mother. And the mother puts the child before herself. And it's a very delicate conversation because of the mental health factors that come into that and all the things. This happened for me when I became a mother, and I had massive postpartum issues. But I still understood that this was a part of the process. This was my death and rebirth. This was my initiation. And this was to become the best mother I could. I had to go through that. Doesn't have to be that brutal, hopefully, for a lot of people, but if they get good support. But there is a saying goodbye to the maiden. There is a see you later to the party girl. There is a see you later to the woman who built up a career, because literally biologically your brain turns off. You lose gray matter. You can't be as good at your job, and you shouldn't be, because you should be leaning more into your vocation as a mother, where you're instinctual, where you're emotionally aware. You're not made to be a CEO and a mother at the same time. You cannot do it all. And anyone who tells you that you can is lying. Something will inevitably get dropped, whether that's your job or your relationship or you or your baby. Something will get dropped. Maybe maybe your house is a mess, whatever it is. You cannot do it all. It's not possible. And it's a lie that we've been sold. And then devalued the women who have chosen to walk that initiation path and sit on the other side. The same way we've devalued the men, the soldiers who have gone to war and sacrificed themselves and their lives and put themselves in a line of danger to protect us, regardless of what you think of, crazy governments creating ridiculous wars for no reason. These men didn't go there thinking of that. They went there to think, I'm going to protect me and my own. And we've devalued that sacrifice as well. Now we have a really low military rate.
Mm.
We're
Yep.
collapsing as a society.
As well as, yeah, was having a very poor pool to actually draw from the military.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like the headwinds for people to join the military nowadays is massive. And so why would you? Because yeah, we've devalued these things. And when you were saying that, I was thinking like, yeah, we have devalued motherhood. We have devalued masculinity and extensions of it in many ways. And what do we value? We value these other things that are. I look at it and I go, well, it's make believe. Like it's made up stuff. It's artificial. And you can only really value artificial things in an artificial environment. And that's really the problem as we move more and more into cities and we create our own environment and we create that artificial atmosphere around us. That allows people to go to not see the real version of nature. Because in nature, there is certain ways you're going to act. A man will act in a certain way. He has to step up and protect. Otherwise, he will not be able to X, Y, and Z. Probably in a ancient time, not be able to breed, not be able to actually find a mate, not be able to procreate his own DNA. The without all those survival mechanisms though, when people aren't rubbing up against nature, then you can make up all sorts of fantasies and bullshit
Mm,
in your head and go like, yeah, this is the truth now. But really, like nature always wins, and
mm,
that's what I'm saying. Is like, sure, we can perhaps buy into this cultural narrative that has been built up over the past 35, 40 years of what used to be called the snag when I was growing up, the sensitive new
mm,
age gentleman, the modern man, the I don't know, demasculine. I don't know what you call them now, but this version of man that doesn't access any of that stuff where they need to do things to survive. The result though is and same on the feminine side or on the female side, the The result, though, I think, is what I was talking about, is that we're going to see a collapse in our population because nature always wins. Like you cannot fight it. You can argue it, you can try and intellectualize it all you want, you can
Yeah.
create whatever story or myth you want around it. But at the end of the day, if you face something in nature, it will probably, and you don't have the resources to deal with it, it's probably going to kill you. So that's kind of like the societal version of what's happening now.
Mm. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing to posit because I mean, what is the answer? Anything that you give to answer is going to offend a whole bunch of people. And not that a lot of us give a shit about offending anyone anymore, because it's gotten to the point where we tried to be very sensitive to everyone's feelings, and look where it's gotten us. But having the conversations around this kind of stuff can also be a bit, can just kind of go around in circles. I personally think that the thing that we can do is take massive personal responsibility in our own behaviors, in our own lives, to embody those values and then impart them onto our children. Because you're right, like when the population declines, you're going to have a whole bunch of Mormons with 15 kids per family that are going to be well populated. You're going to have a whole bunch of South Americans who have had like 100 babies each, and a whole bunch of African countries, and maybe some Indians as well, and not much else. So unless
Yeah,
we actively participate in the future in that way.
yeah, yeah. I think like from that wider standpoint, yeah, like that's something you need to consider. But from the personal individual standpoint, like what you said towards the start, is kind of just setting the example within yourself as an individual, and just saying like this is like, well, not saying anything, just being. This is what I do. This is
Mm,
who I am.
mm,
This is how I live. Um, I actually think that concept is for me one of the core things around masculinity that I've tried to wrap my head around for the past few years. And when I went through my hippie years, that was one of the kind of conclusions that I was getting to, was to be what I titled it the unflappable flag, in my ramblings and writings at the time, which was it didn't matter what way the wind was blowing or what was happening. Like, here's my flag. That's the direction that I'm pointing. That's what I'm doing. So there's forces that are buffeting around, but I am here.
mm,
And like those forces then go, well, that thing's there, and I need to work against it. And as hard as things work, just actually going, no, I'm not the wind. I'm not the rain. I'm not the sunshine. I'm not any of those things. I am the flag, and
mm,
I point, or I'm the sign, or whatever you want to call it. I am the arrow that points that way.
mm.
That is my center. That is my compass. Um, that so just sort of cycling this all back as a loop. You were saying that towards the start was people who set these examples, and they're not necessarily making the biggest money. They're not the loudest voices. They're
Yeah.
just going about and living their life. Um, that's certainly something that I've tried to bring into my life, of being like, hey, I don't need to be a spiritual guru, a life mentor or coach or
Mm,
whatever. Um, I just want to live my life, and I also don't need to do that in any sort of special way. Like, it's the one thing that I got to was the mundacity of life is where the work is actually done for me.
mm,
Um, if I can't do it here, if I can't do it with a mortgage, if I can't do it with kids, if I can't do it, with car repayments and a shitty job, I can't do it anywhere. Like, there's no
yes.
point in me dressing in robes and going living in Ubud in Bali or something, and eating fruit off the tree every day. That's not the version, I guess, I want of spirituality or
Mm.
or enlightenment. Um,
You just want
that
to be Tom
is
Selleck.
that is Tom Selleck. That's exactly what I was about to say. Thank you for finishing my sentence. That's what I get from Tom Selleck, is that
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, okay, he's a movie star, so he is a bit like, look at me,
Mm,
but in that grade of that section of human
mm,
beings, he's not like, look at how much I am. Brrr. He's not like, everyone, listen to me. I'm talking. I'm doing these things. I'm telling you. I'm explaining to you how masculine I am. I'm an alpha. I'm an alpha. I'm an alpha. Um, hot tip: if you're saying you're an alpha, you're not, and I don't think you even fucking know what an alpha is. Um, and you probably don't want to know what an alpha is, because if you actually came across one, you'd shit your pants. I feel like I certainly have, and I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it. But Tom Selleck just is. He exudes that thing. The thing that I like about him, to tie a nice little bow on this, and maybe even to foreshadow our next episode, is that he just is. He has a internal moral compass that he sticks to, and I think other men, myself, I will talk about particularly, smell that, we sense that, and I go, yes, that is the thing that I like. Akin to another person that, like I said, I might foreshadow to something here, who says, "This is who I am." He's a modern movie star. I'll let you maybe fill in the
I already
gaps here.
know.
Who says, "This is what I am. This is who I am. This is what I want to do." And when
Hmm.
people go outside of that, he goes, "You know what? I'm walking away. I have the integrity to walk away from this
Hmm.
thing." And at the moment, he is being buffeted around by Hollywood, and he
Mm.
is walking away from a number of projects, which is upsetting for me because I wanted to see these projects come to fruition. But um, yeah, that I look at that and I go, that's what I respect. I don't
Mm.
respect who you play as a character. I don't
Yes.
respect your movie styles. I respect the fact that you said, I want to give this story and the fans of this particular property the right story. And when you are moving out of that for some cultural narrative that's the fashion at the moment, I will not abide by that, and I'm leaving.
Mm. I also, as a woman, like the fact that he stands when women walk in a room, regardless of if anybody else is doing it or not. He just does it because it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
But we shall talk about that next time. But yes, I will say, as a woman, so you as a man can smell Tom Selleck. I, as a woman, wish I could smell Tom Selleck because he looks like he would smell really good. But no, as a woman, I look at that and I was saying to you, there was some weird kind of like awakening in my body watching, a man in his prime, because Tom Selleck now, he's an older man, older gentleman. It doesn't evoke the same feelings as I look at him now. But looking at him in his prime, because he was 45 in that film and
Mm.
he'd just gotten famous like then, which is amazing to me. So he came to this much later in life, which I think also helped with him being who he was and holding strong to that. He kind of growing out of that boy behavior, much younger. But yeah, there was something, and it was, like I said, it was biological. There was something happening in my body as I was watching him where I was like, oh wow, I've seen you in a whole new light. And like I was like, I want to get on board with that. And it was really enlightening for me as a woman to look at not being able to explain why that is attractive, but just knowing that is a man that you want to position yourself alongside of, and not being attracted to, necessarily the hottest guy in the room or the richest guy in the room or the loudest guy in the room who tells you he's an alpha or whatever, but this guy who's just solid there. And it also gave me a compass to kind of go, okay, where I'm at in my femininity, because I do find that attractive, that must mean that there is something in me that is aligning with that level. And I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that, because that hasn't been me in the past. That's been a big arc for me to get to that point to go, yeah, that's actually what's attractive to me now. Because before I never would have found that attractive. So
Mm.
yeah, I want to smell him too. That's we should call this episode "Smelling Tom Selleck."
The scent of Selleck.
the Selleck scent.
Tom Tom Smelleck.
It was there the whole time. The masculine scent of Tom Selleck. The masculine aroma. Oh dear. Well, it's been great to chat. And if anybody has any questions, they can drop them in the wherever you drop them in. I don't really care. I'm just happy to chat with you. And maybe we'll do this again. Well, we will definitely do this again, and we'll chat about the other unnamed person that I'm sure everybody is very aware of who we are talking about. um,
Title episode will be, I'm not gay, but dot dot dot.
That will be for you, not for me. I'm allowed to find him attractive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
okay. Should we wrap it up? Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure
Where
to
can
chat
people
with you.
find you?
Ragnarok.survival.actual on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the easiest way. Yeah, yep. There's new channels, there's new things coming up, there's new stuff, but it's not quite there yet. So until that's up and running, that's probably the best place to get a hold of me.
If you want to listen to Stu's previous ramblings, you can check out the lives that we've done together. Or Stu also had a little Ragnarok Survival podcast that he would give his thoughts on the state of the world. So you can go back and find that where you found podcasts before him.
Yep. I've been thinking about going back to that. It's a lot of people didn't realize how much think, but yeah, I think if the need is great enough, I'm getting a lot of people saying, "Hey, why aren't you doing those podcasts anymore?" It's a lot.
It is a lot. Well, I look forward to you being a lot next time we speak.
Mm. All right.